Sherwell, 20th of January 2024, China in Africa, an ally in need or a Trojan horse? And why this should alarm the West. Africa is a severe competitor to become the center of East-West global trade networks due to its various economies, growing workforce, and abundance of clean energy resources, like lithium. The past 10 years have seen setbacks that have caused a downturn in the global economy. It is anticipated that Africa and its people will be crucial to rekindling growth. Half of Sub-Saharan Africa's needs are satisfied, resulting in a severe infrastructure deficit. Still, growth is the foremost priority. The region will require yearly infrastructure investments of almost $93 billion to achieve this in the next 10 years. African countries look to China for funding when they need it for growth and integration. While the African agency is crucial, China is the one that issues the extensive interest checks. China now controls all foreign investment in Africa, having invested over $80 billion there thanks to its going out strategy. Over the past 20 years, state-owned businesses, SOEs, have been encouraged to enter local markets and have gained experience in developing infrastructure, which has prepared them to fulfill the needs of Africa. China's engagement allows Beijing to position its goals within a discourse of global leadership and collaboration, and it signifies a worldwide realignment of southern interests. Ethiopia's Eastern Industrial Zone, EIZ, received billions of dollars from China's Belt and Road Initiative, BRI. China's Qiyuan Group owns and operates the EIZ to the fullest extent possible. This demonstrates China's substantial economic influence in Ethiopia. Corruption and unfavorable working circumstances are becoming more and more common. Initiatives like this have been looked into to get around U.S. import duties. But China's lucrative investments and the generation of nearly 20,000 new employment will keep drawing in nations like Ethiopia. An unbalanced relationship between Africa and China could arise from this. Eating and being eaten is how Cameroonian anthropologist Francis Nyamjo characterizes Africa's susceptibility. There is a chance that global extractive capitalism will target Zimbabwe. Local industries are being undermined by a dependency syndrome brought on by China's increasing influence in many areas. Leaders in Zimbabwe and proponents of dependency theory are worried. Many in the West see China's investments as a means of employing soft power to expand its influence globally. The West's concerns over China's increasing influence in Africa are the source of the inflated claims of Chinese neocolonialism in Ethiopia. Chinese workers looking for more excellent financial prospects often invest in infrastructure because their country's economic difficulties are a significant funding source. Nevertheless, we must reframe geopolitical concerns regarding geoeconomics and acknowledge that nations that invest in renewable energy sources, for example, now may emerge as tomorrow's leading geopolitical powers. Lithium is a prime example. Africa is predicted to increase its share of the world's lithium production from 0.1% to 10.6% by 2025. Lithium is essential for a future without carbon. Everything is run on it, including grid-scale energy storage and batteries for electric cars. Furthermore, China has a tight grip on the supply chain. Chinese state-owned enterprises are acquiring the main lithium projects in Africa. Benchmark Mineral Intelligence estimates that shortly, Chinese companies will control 90% of Africa's lithium supply. This is an illicit transaction that is allegedly violating human rights. Deal-making practicality seems to be China's primary concern. Due to public debate about mining and its cautious approach to potentially cruel operations, the West is a slow mining nation. China is actively pursuing mining ventures in the interim. This, along with U.S. policies prioritizing free trade subsidies, puts global supply chains at risk as China's sway over them keeps expanding. There aren't any free trade agreements between Washington and Sub-Saharan Africa. China's strategic use of debt to subjugate African nations and advance Chinese domination on the world stage has drawn criticism from John Bolton. Kenya is one of the nations in financial difficulties. It owes China $6.83 billion. China allegedly utilized debt traps to trick other nations into taking on debt. On the other hand, Chinese loans have cheaper interest rates than loans from Western private lenders. Furthermore, China has not taken assets due to defaults in Africa, in contrast to many Western lenders. Some experts even think that the idea of debt traps is a myth that the West has been spreading. In actuality, people like President Trudeau hold the entire global financial system accountable for its inability to meet the demands of developing nations. Africans generally have good opinions of China's approach, particularly about the Belt and Road Initiative. Ms. Eshiza, a citizen of Kenya, has stated her support for BRI initiatives, such as the Standard Gauge Railway, and she encourages others to make sacrifices to settle debt and fund other projects. African countries prefer Chinese loans because they do not require reforms. Xi Jinping highlights this as a selling feature. Despite having significant agency, Ethiopia's Deputy Economic Commissioner claimed that Western nations counsel them on their legislation. Investment in infrastructure can give ruling regimes legitimacy, however, the general public may disagree with political elites. African nations look to China for economic growth. In response, the West needs to explain the $600 billion in investment that the EU's Global Gateway and the G7 Partnership for Global Infrastructure and Investment have been promising since 2022. However, it is challenging to defend the investment given the failure of domestic infrastructure projects. China has a significant edge because of their early start, even though they might not have practiced good risk management. China's conflicting domestic objectives may make its African policy unclear. Africa's ability to promote more regional commerce and incorporate domestic markets into the global supply chain is crucial. According to an Ethiopian official, Africa should benefit from both the East and the West. China has an advantage over the West, though.